the tender hush of dawn, the Nile River stirs from its nightly slumber. Its wide, glistening expanse, flanked by tall papyrus reeds and shaded date palms, stretches quietly across the heart of ancient Egypt. Here, life begins not with the cry of roosters or the clangor of bells, but with the soft lapping of water against sun-baked banks and the distant rustle of morning breezes over fertile fields. The river is everything. It is mother, father, lifeblood. Each year it swells with the rhythm of distant rains, retreating only after lavishing the land with the silt that brings green abundance to a desert otherwise unrelenting. To awaken in ancient Egypt is to awaken with the Nile, to feel its pulse beneath the soil, its scent in the air, its spirit in the rituals of daily life. A modest village nestled close to the river's bend stirs gently. The mud-brick homes, compact and sun-bleached, breathe out the night's coolness as families rise. The first light of morning drapes the thatched rooftops in golden softness. Inside one such home, a woman leans over a stone grinder, rhythmically turning barley into meal for bread. Beside her, a fire crackles in a clay oven, the scent of last night's embers mingling with the fresh dough that is soon to bake. A child peeks from a woven reed mat, rubbing sleep from wide, curious eyes. The morning is a time of quiet industry. The father, tall and lean, wraps his linen kilt around his waist, tying it with practiced ease before stepping into the light. His hands are calloused, his face shaded by a wide straw hat, already prepared for the heat of the sun. Today, he tends to the irrigation ditches, channels carved long ago by ancestors who knew the rhythm of the river as if it were their own breath. The village stretches along a narrow pathway, its edges marked by clay jars of grain, baskets of dried fish, and stacks of woven mats. Life is humble, but steady. Nearby, an elder sharpens a sickle blade with a stone, humming a tune that was once sung by his grandfather under this same sun. Nothing changes quickly in Egypt. Change is measured in floods, in reigns of kings, in the rising and falling of stars. Children scatter into the morning light, some tasked with gathering kindling, others chasing one another across the dust with gleeful shouts. Their play is simple. Hoops of palm frond, dolls fashioned from linen scraps, but it carries a timeless joy. A girl, her braids neat and decorated with bits of shell, carries a pot balanced effortlessly on her head, heading toward the well with the poise of a dancer. By mid-morning, the scent of baking bread wafts through the air. It mingles with the sharper tang of onions and the earthy smell of river reeds. A family sits together outside their home, sharing their meal on a low table, flatbread still warm from the oven, lentils seasoned with coriander, a clay jar of date beer, thick, sweet, and nourishing. The children eat with laughter, their hands, tearing bread, dipping into shared bowls. This is not a hurried breakfast. In ancient Egypt, meals are taken in rhythm with the day's gentle unfolding. No clocks tick away the moments here. Time is known by the position of the sun, the behavior of the birds, the cooling of shadows. Life follows the pulse of the earth. As the sun climbs higher, the village quiets. Those who labor outside brace themselves for the heat, while others seek the shade of trees or the cool interiors of their homes. The Nile, ever near, shimmers with the intensity of light, yet flows on with calm and assurance. A boat drifts by, its papyrus sails catching the breeze, its cargo a mystery. The river is both road and mirror, reflecting the sky and carrying goods from far-flung corners of the kingdom. In the fields beyond the village, farmers stand ankle-deep in water, directing the flow of irrigation through channels carved by hand. They do not shout or hurry. They work as their fathers did, with measured steps and steady hands. Their minds carry the memory of floods past, of droughts survived, of harvests celebrated beneath a full moon. Farther away, under the shelter of a sycamore tree, an old woman sits with her spindle, twisting thread from flax. Her movements are slow but sure. She sings softly to herself, a lullaby that once soothed her children when they were small. Beside her, a boy watches, entranced, absorbing the unspoken lessons of patience and craft. As the afternoon approaches, the air thickens with warmth. The horizon wavers in the heat. But within the homes of the village, all remains tranquil. Some nap. Others tell stories. A young scribe, on break from his training, sketches hieroglyphs in the sand with a stick, dreaming of one day working in the house of life, recording sacred texts on papyrus scrolls. In Egypt, knowledge is revered. A literate man holds power not just in politics, but in spirit. The gods themselves are said to write in signs and symbols. To read is to touch the divine. And then, slowly, the day begins to lean toward dusk. The light softens. The cries of birds returning to roost drift across the river. Families emerge once more into the open air, sharing a second, smaller meal. The air cools, the dust settles, and across the horizon, the silhouette of distant hills grows darker as the sun sinks behind them. By nightfall, the village is still, again. The stars emerge one by one, glittering over the Nile's quiet path. In the temples, priests light lamps and offer incense. In the homes, prayers are murmured. Small statues of gods tucked safely near the hearth. And as the moon rises, bathing the land in silver, the people of the Nile close their eyes, hearts at peace. Their lives are woven into the river's flow, their dreams cradled by its eternal whisper. In the land of eternal sun, the mid-morning hours arrive with a brilliance that feels almost sacred. The sky stretches endlessly above, a vast dome of azure blue, and the golden disk of Ra, the sun god, blazes with quiet authority. For the people of ancient Egypt, the sun is not merely a source of light and heat. It is a divine force, a presence that governs time, labor, and even the beating of hearts. As the daylight deepens, the gentle calm of dawn gives way to the exertion of toil. Across the fertile plains that fringe the Nile, fields buzz with quiet activity. The black earth, dark and rich from the river's floodwaters, offers its yield reluctantly. Laborers, clad in linen kilts and wide straw hats, bend and rise in patient repetition. Their work is slow, methodical, guided by generations of tradition and the subtle cues of the land. A young man, perhaps 17, swings a mattock over his shoulder. His brow glistens with perspiration, and dust clings to his limbs. This is his first season in the field, and though his muscles ache with unfamiliar effort, he does not complain. Beside him, an older uncle moves with seasoned ease, offering the boy a nod of encouragement. In Egypt, work is a familial affair. Knowledge is passed down not in books, but through hands, sweat, and quiet example. Nearby, a group of women wade into shallow water channels, their skirts wet to the knee, pulling reeds and tending to water. Plants. Their chatter floats in the air like a melody, light, rhythmic, and tinged with laughter. There is beauty in this labor, a sense of place and purpose. Though the tasks are arduous, they are laced with meaning, tied as they are to survival, faith, and the great cycle of life. But not all labor is so pastoral. Beyond the tranquil farmlands, in the scorching sands that gird the great desert, a harsher scene unfolds. Here, under the unrelenting sun, gangs of men haul stone blocks for construction, temples, tombs, and monuments that will outlast their lifespans by millennia. Supervisors, appointed by the state or noble patrons, pace among them with watchful eyes. These laborers, often conscripts or debtors, sweat and strain in silence. Theirs is a life of dust and discipline, of blistered hands and weary backs. In one such worksite, the distant hum of chisels and hammers echoes against the limestone cliff face. An overseer inspects a half-carved column, nodding in quiet approval. Water-bearers move from man to man, offering brief relief. A sip, a splash, a shared glance of gratitude. The sun is merciless, yet so is the schedule. The gods must be honored. The dead must be enshrined. The pharaoh's glory must be etched into eternity. And still, the hours press onward. Midday arrives with a searing intensity. In homes and workshops, in fields and courtyards, those who can afford to pause do so. Shade becomes a precious commodity. Walls of mud brick and roofs of thatch offer some comfort. A young mother cradles her infant in a cool corner, fanning away flies and softly humming. In the marketplace, merchants sit beneath canopies, sipping water from clay jars wrapped in damp linen to keep them cool. The people of ancient Egypt are masters of adaptation. They know how to coax life from heat, how to endure its burdens with patience and grace. Clothing is light and breathable. Meals are small and frequent. Dates, figs, nuts, and bread baked in rounded ovens. There is no rush, no frantic chase. Time flows here like the Nile, measured, cyclical, and eternal. In the palace precincts of a provincial governor, a scribe records the day's grain tally. He sits cross-legged on a woven mat, his stylus dancing across a papyrus scroll. Numbers, symbols, and names, each stroke preserving a moment in the great rhythm of administration. His hands are ink-stained, his eyes focused. The work is quiet, intellectual, but no less demanding. For in this land, knowledge is as revered as labour, and writing is a sacred skill. As the afternoon shadows lengthen, a gentle breeze rises from the river. Its breath cools the brow, lifts the spirit. Farmers finish their rows and rinse their feet in irrigation canals. Stone haulers stretch their backs and share a crust of bread. In the city outskirts, children play with palm leaf dolls and rolling hoops, their laughter echoing like birdsong across the walls. And as the sun finally dips toward the western hills, where the land of the living gives way to the necropolis of the dead, the day's work slows. There is a softness now, a tenderness in the fading light. Fires are lit. Bread is warmed. Families gather, grateful for another day survived under the eye of Ra. In ancient Egypt, you would not last a day, not for lack of strength, but for lack of understanding. To live here is to move in harmony with the land and sky, to bend without breaking, to give without demanding. It is to know your place in a vast, sacred order and to serve it with dignity. And yet, for those who live it is not suffering, it is life, woven in patience, bathed in sun. Mourning in ancient Egypt was not only a return to labor and duty, but also a renewal of the body and spirit. As the sky began to blush with early light and the river's surface shimmered with promise, the people of the Nile began their day with water. Cleanliness, often overlooked by modern imaginations of the past, was an integral part of Egyptian life. It was not merely a matter of hygiene, it was a matter of holiness. In a modest home shaded by reeds and mud brick walls, a young man steps into the courtyard, a shallow basin of water at his feet. With calm, deliberate movements, he splashes his face and arms, then washes his feet, letting the cool water chase away the dust of sleep. This ritual of morning cleansing is repeated across the kingdom, from farmer to noble, and even in the grand halls of palaces. The people of ancient Egypt live close to the earth, yet strive to remain free from its dust. They wear their cleanliness like a second garment, visible, expected, and respected. Priests, in particular, are known to bathe several times each day, scrubbing with natron salts and perfumed oils to remain ritually pure before approaching the gods. Even common folk cleanse their bodies with water mixed from clay jars, sometimes scented with crushed herbs when available. The day's attire, like the rituals of washing, is simple yet meaningful. A child, barely 10, helps his younger sister wrap herself in a light linen shift. The cloth is soft, made from flax spun and woven by her mother. It drapes gently over her shoulders, leaving her arms bare in the heat. The child giggles as her mother ties a thin belt at her waist, adjusting it with practiced hands. Linen is the fabric of Egypt, cool, breathable, and radiant in the sun. Its purity is symbolic, its feel a comfort in the dry desert air. Men wear kilts or simple skirts, tied at the waist, while women wrap themselves in longer, form-fitting dresses. For the wealthy, these garments are pleated and embroidered, occasionally dyed with rare plant-based colors. But for most, they remain undyed and pale, reflecting the golden sun that blesses the land. Hair, too, is kept short or shaved, particularly among priests and laborers, both for comfort and sanitation. Wigs are, worn by those of status, crafted with care from human hair and plant fibers, adorned with beads and ribbons. Even among the poor, hair is oiled and braided, a source of pride and personal expression. In the heart of a village, a woman bends over a basin of water, gently combing her daughter's hair with a carved wooden comb. She applies oil made from castor and moringa seeds, smoothing it carefully, her hands moving in slow, soothing circles. The girl is quiet, eyes half closed, basking in the affection wrapped in every motion. Personal adornment is not merely vanity. It is identity, belief, and protection. Around many necks hang amulets shaped like scarabs or the Eye of Horus. These tokens, often crafted from faience or soft stones, are believed to guard against misfortune. Even a farmer's child may wear one, a gift from a grandmother or a charm, found near the riverbank. Cosmetics are common, used by men and women alike. Green malachite and black coal line the eyes, not only to enhance beauty, but also to protect against the glare of the sun and ward off evil spirits. Beeswax, myrrh, and crushed petals are blended into pastes to scent the skin. It is a land of dust, yes, but also a land of fragrance, colour, and intention. In the city of Thebes, in a quiet courtyard behind a merchant's house, a boy watches his father polish a mirror of bronze. The father speaks softly about his own youth of the day. He first wore a linen robe with blue threading, the day he was old enough to join the market trade. Clothing is not just fabric, it is a signal of status, of stage in life, of readiness for duty. The boy nods, and later, when alone, he traces the folds of his plain robe with quiet pride. He knows that one day he too will wear a sash of colour, will carry goods wrapped in cloth, will speak with buyers who come by boat and camel. For now, he waits and learns, watching how garments are folded, how sandals are repaired with rushes, how stains are scrubbed from robes with river clay and patience. And yet, despite all care, garments wear thin, and feet gather dust, and skin is marked by the sun. But there is no shame in this. To be human in ancient Egypt is to move between the sacred and the mundane, between the glory of temple rituals and the humility of washing one's feet at dusk. As the day passes and the sun leans westward, families gather in shaded rooms, garments hung on pegs flutter lightly in the breeze. Children nap on mats, their faces peaceful, their linen tunics rumpled from play. Mothers inspect hems, fathers trim stray threads, and young girls tie reeds into bracelets to wear in their hair. Even in the tombs, the dead are wrapped with care. Linen shrouds swaddle them, their bodies anointed and adorned. For Egyptians believe in preparation, not only for the day ahead, but for the eternity beyond. Cleanliness, dress, and decorum are not just customs. They are echoes of something deeper, a belief in harmony, in Ma'at, the sacred balance of the universe. And so, as the light fades and lamps are lit, the linen veils of day are folded once more. A girl leans against her mother's side, fingers tangled in a ribbon, eyes growing heavy. Tomorrow will come again. The Nile will flow. The garments will be washed. And the people, in all their dust and dignity, will rise again with the sun. As the golden light of morning floods the landscape, a stillness settles upon the temple grounds. The great stone walls, carved with images of gods and offerings, rise silently against the cloudless sky. Pillars adorned with lotus blossoms and papyrus stems line the temple court, guiding pilgrims and priests toward the heart of the sacred space. In ancient Egypt, religion is not merely a part of life. It is the pulse that beats beneath all things. The gods are many, yet they are one in purpose: to preserve balance, to nurture life, to guide the journey of the soul. Each city, each village, holds its patron deity in reverence, from the falcon-headed Horus of the sky to the lioness Sekhmet of war and healing. At Thebes, Amun reigns supreme, veiled in mystery and might. In Heliopolis, Ra rides his solar bark across the heavens. And in every corner of the land, Osiris, Lord of the Dead, waits patiently in the shadows. The temple is not a place for the common man to enter freely. It is a house of the gods, a sanctuary where the divine and earthly meet in quiet ceremony. Only the purified may walk its sacred halls. Priests, cleansed by daily baths, clothed in the whitest linen, anointed with oils of frankincense and myrrh. Their duties are precise, rhythmic, unchanged through centuries. Within a chamber dimly lit by shafts of sunlight, a high priest prepares the morning ritual. He stands before a statue of the god, its features calm, its presence imposing. The god does not speak, yet his silence commands respect. With measured grace, the priest unveils the figure, washes it with water, anoints it with sacred oils, and offers food and incense. These acts are not symbolic, they are real. The god is believed to inhabit the statue, to accept the offerings, to listen. Outside, a small group gathers at the temple gates. They cannot enter the inner sanctum, but they wait in reverent silence. A mother carries a small bundle, perhaps a figurine of Bastet, the cat goddess, to bless her newborn. A farmer bows low, muttering a prayer to Sobek for protection during the flood. A merchant brings a basket of dates, setting it gently upon the offering table beneath the towering columns. The scent of burning myrrh drifts on the breeze. It carries, with it, something timeless, something holy. The gods are not distant in this land. They walk among the people, their presence felt in the movement of the Nile, in the rising of the stars, in the health of a child, or the outcome of a harvest. In the courtyard, a young initiate sweeps the flagstones, his movements quiet, precise. He watches the priests with awe, dreaming of the day when he too will learn the sacred words. The gestures, the prayers passed down in whispers from one generation to the next. His father served in this temple, his grandfather before him. This is not merely work, it is devotion made visible. Temples are not only places of worship, they are centers of learning, of economy, of celestial observation. Scribes trained within their walls, recording hymns, rituals, and the movements of the heavens. Doctors studied scrolls filled with herbs and incantations. Architects consulted the gods before laying the first stone of a new building. The sacred and the practical are not divided here. They flow into one another like the waters of the Nile. At noon, the shadows lengthen beneath the pylons. A group of pilgrims from a distant province arrives, their sandals dusty, their robes faded by the sun. They carry small jars of perfumed oil, woven baskets, and loaves of bread to place before the gods. Though they may never see the innermost shrine, their devotion is no less real. They kneel at the threshold, touch their foreheads to the stone, and whisper their hearts into the air. A temple dancer performs within the sanctuary, her arms weaving stories of creation, her fingers tracing symbols in the air. The music is soft, sistrums, flutes, a low drum. Her movements are not entertainment but offering, an ancient language of reverence and grace. The god watches, unmoving yet ever present, his silence as deep as time. In the afternoon, a priest carves a line of hieroglyphs into a limestone tablet. His hand is steady, guided by years of discipline. The words are not his own. They belong to the gods, to history, to the sacred order that binds all things. Each stroke is a prayer, a promise that the world shall remain in balance. By evening, the rituals draw to a close. The god is veiled once more, his chamber sealed in silence. Lamps are lit along the temple walls, their flickering flames a soft echo of the sun's departing light. Outside, the people begin to disperse, their hearts lighter, their spirits calmed. The gods have listened. The world remains in harmony. As darkness settles over the land, the temple glows with quiet light. Within its walls, the eternal dance of offering and acceptance, prayer and silence, continues. The priests retire to their chambers, their feet weary, their souls nourished. The initiate finishes his sweeping, places his broom in its corner, and gazes once more at the great statue before slipping into the shadows. In ancient Egypt, you would not last a day within the sacred temple walls, not because of danger or punishment, but because the sacredness of the place would overwhelm the modern heart. Here, every breath is measured, every gesture sacred, every moment a link in the unbroken chain between heaven and earth. To live in such a world is to walk slowly, to speak gently, to bow before mysteries larger than oneself. And though the gods do not answer in voices we can hear, their presence lingers in the cool stone, the rising incense, the whisper of prayers carried on the desert wind. As the first rays of sunlight stream across the Nile, the villages of ancient Egypt awaken not only to work and worship, but to the hum of kitchens and the scent of bread rising in clay ovens. The morning air carries with it the earthy perfume of baking loaves mingled with the faint sweetness of fermenting grain. In this land, food is more than sustenance. It is a symbol of survival, a marker of status, a daily act of gratitude. In a modest courtyard surrounded by mud brick walls, a woman kneels by a grindstone. Her hands, though calloused, move with the fluidity of long habit. She pours a handful of barley into the upper stone, turning it steadily in a circular rhythm. The sound is soft, granular, like whispers between the stones. Beside her, her daughter gathers water from a clay jar, watching closely as her mother adds it to the meal to form a thick, pliable dough. Bread is the lifeblood of Egypt, as essential as the Nile itself. Baked daily, it is made from emmer wheat, or barley, grains that grow plentifully along the riverbanks. Loaves take many shapes, round, conical, crescent, but all are dense, coarse, and satisfying. The dough is often mixed with herbs or dates when available, sometimes filled with bits of onion or fig for special meals. Clay ovens, shaped like beehives and blackened by years of use, line the edges of kitchens. They glow softly with ember, heat as women slide loaves in with flat wooden paddles. Children peer in eagerly, hoping to taste the warm, crusty ends once they emerge. Bread is never wasted here. Stale loaves are softened in water, fed to animals, or used in stews. It is food, it is offering, it is holy. Not far away, in another courtyard shaded by reeds, a group of men tend to large ceramic vats. Inside bubbles, a thick, yeasty mixture, the beer of the Nile. Unlike the golden lagers of modern times, Egyptian beer is dense and nourishing, often more akin to a porridge than a beverage. Made from partially baked bread fermented with dates and water, it is a staple for all classes. A boy stirs the vat slowly, the smell rising in warm, yeasty waves. His father checks the consistency, adds a few more chunks of bread, and nods in approval. Beer is consumed with nearly every meal. It refreshes the laborer in the fields, comforts the child before sleep, and accompanies offerings at the temple, altar. It is not merely drink, it is nourishment, blessing, and tradition. Midday meals are shared beneath simple awnings or inside shaded rooms. A family gathers on woven mats, their food spread before them on clay dishes. Alongside the bread and beer, there may be lentils cooked with garlic, beans mashed and seasoned with coriander, or cucumbers sliced and sprinkled with salt. On special days, they enjoy roasted fish from the Nile, or goose if the household is wealthy or celebrating. Fruit adds colour to the meal. Dates, sweet and sticky, are eaten whole or mixed into cakes. Figs are prized, their soft flesh a contrast to the coarseness of daily bread. Pomegranates, when in season, are crushed for their juice, their seeds glistening like rubies. Even the poor may have a few grapes or wild berries, gathered from the edges of cultivated fields. Salt is valuable, often traded or gifted. Garlic and onions are staples, not only for flavor, but for health. Their sharp aroma is familiar in every home. Olive oil, imported from trade, is used sparingly, a luxury more common among the upper classes. Honey, rare and golden, is reserved for festivals or special treats, its sweetness a gift from the gods. In the homes of nobles and scribes, meals are more elaborate. Servants prepare multiple dishes, and guests recline on cushioned benches as musicians play soft melodies. Meat, including beef and lamb, may be roasted and seasoned with imported spices. Bread is lighter, sometimes made with milk or eggs. Wine, pressed from cultivated vineyards, flows freely in goblets of carved alabaster. Still, across every social divide, food in Egypt is tied to the rhythm of the land. The flood of the Nile determines the harvest determines the feast. A failed inundation means hardship, and prayers for plenty accompany every meal, no matter how modest. In the marketplace, food is bartered and bought with careful calculation. A farmer trades onions for fish, a potter offers jars in exchange for figs. The market buzzes with quiet life, with the rustle of baskets and the call of merchants under thatched stalls. It is here that news is exchanged, stories shared, marriages arranged, all while weighing lentils and counting loaves. Even in death, food travels with the soul. Tombs are stocked with clay models of bread makers, brewers, and butchers. Paintings show the deceased feasting in the afterlife, surrounded by tables laden with fruit and wine. The ka, the spirit, must eat. And so, families leave offerings at tombs, a loaf, a cup of beer, a handful of dates, renewed with each passing season as the sun begins to set, casting long shadows over the village. The evening meal is prepared. Fires are stoked. Pots bubble with stew. Children return from chores, their hands and faces smudged with dust. Families gather once more, giving thanks not only for the food, but for the day itself. They eat slowly, savoring the quiet, knowing that in the bread and beer before them lie the fruits of the Nile, the work of their hands, and the blessings of the gods. To live a single day in ancient Egypt is to understand the sacredness of nourishment. Food is not taken for granted. It is woven into prayer, into labor, into love. It sustains the body and comforts the spirit. And beneath the golden sky, where the river flows eternal, a simple loaf of bread and a clay cup of beer are reminders of all that binds heaven and earth. As the sun rises above the horizon, casting long beams of gold across the land, a hush falls over the great capital. In the heart of Egypt, far from the murmurs of humble villages and the rustling reeds of the Nile, the palace of the pharaoh stirs with quiet reverence. Here, behind towering walls and guarded gates, dwells not just a king, but a living god. The pharaoh is not merely a ruler. He is the embodiment of divine will, the earthly vessel of Horus in life and Osiris in death. His voice is law, his gaze, protection, his every movement a continuation of the sacred order known as Ma'at, the harmony that governs heaven and earth. To live under his rule is to exist within a divinely blessed structure. To defy him is to disrupt the balance of the cosmos itself. In a chamber lined with gold leaf and painted ceilings, the pharaoh awakens to the scent of incense and the soft chants of priests. His body is washed and anointed with perfumed oils, his feet dried with linen woven by the hands of noblewomen dedicated to temple service. Before him, servants lay out his garments, robes of the finest linen, sandals crafted from gilded leather, and a wide collar of lapis lazuli and turquoise that shimmers in the morning light. Upon his brow rests the double crown, the white crown of Upper Egypt and the red of Lower Egypt, joined as a symbol of unity. It is heavy, not only in weight, but in meaning. With it, he carries the burdens of flood and famine, justice and judgment, war and peace. His heart must remain steady, his vision clear, his every decision shaped not by whim, but by divine guidance. Outside the palace walls, the people live under the pharaoh's protection, even if they may never see his face. His name is spoken, with reverence in prayers and songs. Scribes copy his decrees onto scrolls. Officials carry out his orders in provinces and farms, and soldiers march at his command. Statues in his likeness stand in markets and temples alike, their silent eyes fixed on the horizon. Within the grand hall of audience, foreign dignitaries kneel before the throne. The pharaoh sits above them, his back straight, his expression composed. He listens not in haste, but with a presence that fills the air with stillness. Messengers bring tribute: gold from Nubia, cedarwood from Lebanon, incense from Punt. Each gift is received as confirmation of Egypt's greatness, as a recognition that the sun does not set on her glory. And yet, despite the grandeur, the pharaoh is not free. His time is shaped by duty, his actions measured by tradition. From sunrise to sunset, he moves through rituals and audiences, judgments and consultations. He must visit temples, consult with high priests, oversee construction projects, and inspect offerings prepared in his name. His every breath belongs to Egypt. Beneath the weight of ceremonial roles, the man beneath the crown remains human. He tires, he weeps, he loves. In his private chambers, he may rest his hand on the head of a child, listen to music played softly on a harp, or gaze quietly at the stars through a carved lattice window. These moments are few and precious, for even in sleep, his dreams are visited by gods who whisper of duty and destiny. In the palace kitchens, cooks prepare meals fit for divine favor. Platters of roast duck, dates wrapped in lotus leaves, and honeyed cakes are arranged with care. But the pharaoh eats simply compared to the imagined luxuries. Bread and beer are still his staples, as they are for all his people. Simplicity, when worn with grace, is itself a mark of strength. The queen, resplendent in her own right, walks beside him in many ceremonies. She is no mere ornament. Often, she is an advisor, a spiritual counterpart, sometimes even a co-ruler. Her wisdom, her lineage, and her grace are essential to the balance of the kingdom. Together, they present an image of harmony, of divine right, of stability in a world shaped by cycles of flood and drought. Outside the city, colossal statues of the pharaoh watch over the land. Their features are idealized: eternal youth, serene, confidence, eyes forever open. Inscriptions proclaim victories in battle, donations to temples, praises from priests. These monuments are not built for vanity, but for legacy. The pharaoh must ensure that his name endures beyond his life, for only through remembrance can the soul continue its journey in the afterlife. Yet even the mighty cannot escape death. When a pharaoh passes, the entire nation mourns. Temples fall into silence, citizens wear garlands of mourning, and the royal tomb, prepared across decades, is sealed with ritual and reverence. Inside lie treasures meant to accompany the ruler to the next world: chariots, food, scrolls, games, and prayers. But more than wealth, it is memory that keeps the pharaoh's spirit alive. His name, carved into stone, painted onto walls, spoken in offerings, ensures that he is never truly gone. For in Egypt, to be remembered is to remain among the living. As evening descends upon the capital, the palace is bathed in amber light. The pharaoh stands upon a balcony, watching the river that nourishes his people. In his gaze lies the wisdom of many generations. He knows the strength of his position, but also the fragility of time. Empires rise and fall, statues crumble, but the bond between ruler and land, between the divine and the human, remains eternal. To walk in the sandals of a pharaoh is to carry more than power. It is to carry the weight of Mut, the balance of the world. And in the quiet moments, when the stars shimmer above and the Nile sings below, even the ruler of Egypt must bow to something greater than himself. Beneath the warm gaze of the Egyptian sun, far from the regal halls and temple columns, lies the heartbeat of the land, the family home. These dwellings, modest in form yet rich in warmth, cluster along the edges of fields and riverbanks, built from mud brick and thatch. Their walls, though humble, cradle the daily lives of farmers, artisans, scribes, and servants, guarding laughter, labor, and love. A typical home consists of just a few rooms. The walls are made from sun-dried bricks, thick to keep out heat, their surfaces coated in a smooth layer of mud plaster. Windows, small and high, let in light without surrendering to the heat, and the roof, flat and often used as sleeping space in the summer, is reached by an exterior stair. Inside, the rooms are shaded and cool, simply furnished with reed mats, low stools, and pottery jars that line the walls like silent sentinels. In the soft haze of morning, the home awakens gently. A mother stirs the fire pit, placing dried animal, dung, or reeds for kindling. The scent of smoke curls through the doorway, and soon the crackle of flame welcomes the day. Beside her, a child crushes garlic with a smooth stone, eyes bright with curiosity, hands eager to learn. Another sibling feeds goats tethered outside, whispering to them as if they might answer. The father, his limbs long and bronzed by the sun, returns from inspecting the fields. He leans his staff beside the doorway and steps into the shade, greeted by the familiar sounds and smells of his home. Before long, the family gathers for breakfast. Flatbread still warm from the fire, a jar of beer, perhaps a fig or slice of cheese. The meal is modest, yet cherished. Each bite carries the flavor of togetherness. Family life in Egypt is tightly woven. The household is not merely a space, but a sanctuary. Grandparents, parents, and children live under one roof, sometimes joined by cousins or distant kin. The elder offers stories and blessings. The mother provides order and nurture. The father labors and leads. The children observe and contribute, growing through imitation and instruction. Daily chores are shared without complaint. The walls may need patching after a harsh wind. The storage jars check to ensure grain is safe from moisture and pests. Water must be drawn from nearby wells or carried from the river in clay pots balanced expertly upon heads. Clothes are washed in shallow basins, then laid out on sun-drenched walls to dry, fluttering like pennants of ordinary life. In one home, a young girl practices weaving on a small loom set near the doorway. Her fingers move slowly, tongue poking out in concentration, her older sister watching and offering quiet advice. These moments are simple, yet foundational. They are the lessons that shape the rhythm of life, passed down not in books, but in motion, sound, and repetition. Nearby, a boy molds clay into a bowl, mimicking the potter he saw in the marketplace. His father watches with a smile, then takes the half-formed bowl and gently reshapes it, showing how to smooth the edges, how to press the base so it stands firm. The boy nods, storing the knowledge like a seed within his growing mind. Marriage is central to family life. Most Egyptians marry young, and unions are as much practical partnerships as romantic ones. A couple's first home may be just one room, but it is filled with hope. Furniture is sparse, a mat for sleeping, a jar for water, a chest for clothes. But there is dignity in these beginnings, and pride in building a life from the earth up. Births are moments of great joy and quiet prayer. A midwife, often an elder woman of the village, arrives with oils and clean cloth. Incense is burned, charms are placed nearby, figures of Taweret, the hippo goddess who guards childbirth, or Bes, the fierce protector of home and children. When the cry of a newborn echoes through the walls, neighbors offer soft songs, gifts of food, and whispered blessings. Illness, though feared, is met with both herbal care and spiritual hope. A sick child may be given infusions of thyme or fennel, while amulets are placed near the bed, and priests may be asked to offer prayers or draw protective symbols. Death, when it comes, is mourned deeply, but not without preparation. The body is washed, wrapped, and honored. A small procession may follow, voices low, eyes cast toward the journey beyond. Despite hardships, life inside the home is marked by contentment. Music, played on simple instruments like flutes or lyres, fills the air during evenings. Stories are shared under starlight, tales of gods and kings, of animals and clever peasants. Children drift to sleep to the sound of their mother's voice, her words wrapping them in peace. The home is also a place of quiet devotion. A niche in the wall may hold small figures of deities, smoothed by the touch of many fingers. A bowl of fresh water or a handful of flowers might be placed as an offering. These are not grand gestures, but daily acts of connection between earth and sky, life and spirit. And in the cool of night, when the fire has dimmed and the family rests, the home breathes softly. The sounds of the outside world fade. Only the rustle of reeds and the distant murmur of the river remain. Under the canopy of stars, this small dwelling stands firm, held together by more than bricks. It is bound by care, memory, and the quiet strength of love. To spend a day within these walls is to understand Egypt not through its monuments, but through its people. In every pot, every prayer, every tender gesture, the spirit of a civilization endures, not carved in stone, but etched in the hearts of those who live, love, and labor beneath its eternal sky. In the heart of the bustling city, where markets hum and temples rise, a quieter craft unfolds each morning behind the shaded walls of the House of Life. Here, beyond the chatter of merchants and the rhythmic beat of artisans' hammers, a group of boys sits cross-legged on reed mats, their eyes fixed on the hands of a master scribe. In ancient Egypt, knowledge is not common. It is cultivated, sacred, and bestowed only upon the dedicated. The school of scribes is no grand academy, yet it is a place of immense reverence. The walls are plain, the floors of compacted earth, but the air is thick with the fragrance of ink and oil, the rustle of papyrus scrolls, and the quiet determination of young minds. A long wooden table stands at the front, covered in inkwells made from carved stone, split reeds used as pens, and small wooden palettes stained with soot and ochre. The students begin their lessons early, while the light is soft and the air still cool. Their first task is not writing, but listening. The teacher recites passages from texts long revered, hymns to Thoth, the god of writing and wisdom, or instructions from ancient viziers. The boys repeat each phrase carefully, committing words to memory before ever placing stylus to papyrus. Among them is a boy of 12, his linen tunic slightly rumpled, his hands already stained with ink. He leans forward, eyes bright with intent, tongue peeking from the corner of his mouth as he tries to mimic the elegant strokes shown to him. Hieroglyphs, with their graceful curves and intricate details, do not come easily. Each symbol carries meaning, and meaning requires precision. In the beginning, they practice on shards of broken pottery or smooth pieces of limestone, cheaper and more forgiving than fine papyrus. They write lists of words, names of animals, months, gods, and offerings. They copy proverbs, their meanings slowly unfolding as the teacher explains. A wise word is more hidden than a precious stone, he says. Yet it may be found among servant girls at the millstone. Becoming a scribe is no simple task. It takes years of patience, discipline, and humility. But for those who succeed, the rewards are immense. A scribe may never toil in the fields, nor bend beneath the burden of stone. Instead, he carries the weight of knowledge, the stories of the gods, the laws of the land, the secrets of healing, the histories of kings. He becomes a vessel of memory, a guardian of Ma'at. In another room, older students practice formal letters, legal contracts, and accounts. One boy calculates grain taxes for an imaginary province. Another copies a letter of complaint from a labourer whose rations were short. These exercises are not games. They are preparation for real responsibilities. Scribes serve in every level of Egyptian life, in temples, palaces, military camps, granaries, and courts. Near the window, a student gently unrolls a sheet of fresh papyrus. The The scroll crackles softly, its fibers still smelling of the marshes, where it grew. With a reed pen, he writes the name of the current pharaoh, followed by an official decree. His characters are neat, his spacing balanced. His teacher watches, then nods with a quiet smile. The boy's pride is visible, though he does not speak it aloud. Papyrus itself is a marvel. Harvested from the reeds that grow thick along the Nile, its inner pith is sliced into thin strips, laid in perpendicular layers, then pressed and dried into sheets. Smooth, durable, and light, it serves not only for scribal work, but for record-keeping, letters, contracts, and sacred texts. A well-kept scroll can endure for centuries, and many still do. The scribes also learn the other scripts, hieratic, a simplified form used for daily writing, and later, demotic for administrative affairs. They must be able to move between languages of ceremony and languages of commerce, to read both the wisdom of the ancients and the complaints of the present. They become bridges between past and future, between spoken and written, between life and death. During midday, the boys take a break. They stretch their limbs, rinse their hands, and share small loaves of bread and cups of beer. Their chatter is low but filled with energy. Some joke about a crooked glyph. Others dream aloud of one day working in the palace or copying sacred texts for the gods. In the afternoon, lessons resume with storytelling. The teacher reads from a scroll recounting the tale of Sinuhe, an official who fled Egypt, only to return home with wisdom and humility. The boys listen with wide eyes, caught between the rhythm of the words and the richness of the lessons hidden or within. These stories are not mere entertainment. They teach ethics, loyalty, and the values of their people. As the sun lowers in the sky, casting long shadows across the courtyard, the students gather their tools and offer a bow to the teacher. They leave quietly, their scrolls tucked beneath arms, their fingers still tracing invisible lines of practice in the air. They are young, but already they carry the seeds of something powerful. To be a scribe in ancient Egypt is to hold the keys to eternity. The stone may crumble, the body decay, but the written word endures. In scrolls and carvings, the scribe's work outlives him, preserving not only names and dates, but prayers, hopes, and the dreams of a civilization that refuses to be forgotten. And so, under the fading light of the temple walls, ink still wet on the reed, a boy begins to understand what it means to shape the world, not with sword or plough, but with the quiet strength of a pen. Beyond the gleaming palaces and quiet temples, past the fields where farmers bend to the rhythm of the Nile, lies a world shaped by skilled hands and devoted hearts. Here, in the village of Deir el-Medina, nestled between desert hills, lives a community unlike any other in ancient Egypt. These are the artisans, stone carvers, painters, masons, and draftsmen, chosen not just for their skill, but for the sacred purpose they serve. They are the builders of eternity. Their task is immense, for they labor to construct and decorate the tombs of the pharaohs in the Valley of the Kings. These are no simple graves, but elaborate sanctuaries meant to carry the soul safely into the afterlife. Each tomb must be carved deep into the living rock, its chambers aligned with the stars, its walls adorned with the spells and symbols that guard the spirit through its journey beyond death. The artisans of Deir el-Medina live in a close-knit community, their homes built in neat rows along narrow lanes, each filled with the buzz of creation. They are provided with food, water, oil, and tools by the state. In return, they work with unwavering dedication, often under the eye of foremen and scribes who record every task, every absence, every ration distributed. Their days begin with the rising sun, and their labors are guided by precision, memory, and reverence. In the quiet of morning, a sculptor prepares his chisels. He touches each one with care, checking the sharpness, feeling the weight. He knows the stone well, its hardness, its flaws, the way it responds to pressure. Before he makes a single strike, he bows his head and whispers a prayer to Ptah, the god of craftsmen. Then, with steady hands, he begins to shape the stone, coaxing curves and lines from the silence of rock. Beside him, a painter grinds pigment from minerals gathered in distant lands. Red ochre, yellow from orpiment, blue from lapis lazuli. She mixes the powders with gum and water, testing the colors on scraps of limestone. Her palette is bright and sacred, each hue holding meaning. Red is life and victory. Blue is the sky, the Nile, and protection. Green speaks of rebirth. With brushes made from reeds and hair, she brings scenes to life. Boats sailing through the underworld, gods offering blessings, the deceased standing before the scales of judgment. Inside the tomb, silence reigns except for the tap of chisels and the hush of brushes. The walls are alive with stories, the Book of the Dead, the Amduat, the Litany of Ra, texts meant to guide the soul through the 12 hours of night. Every figure, every glyph must be exact. A single mistake can carry consequence, for these are not merely decorations. They are spells, safeguards, sacred paths etched into eternity. The work is slow, sometimes taking decades. The artisans know they may never see the completion of the tomb they begin. Yet they work without complaint, for they understand their role in something larger than themselves. They are not building for the living, but for the immortal. Their craft is not merely practical, it is a form of worship. During breaks, they rest in the shade of palm trees or sit in the courtyards of their homes, sharing bread, beer, and quiet stories. Their conversations drift between the weight of stone and the dreams of the afterlife. Children play nearby, mimicking the strokes of their parents, etching simple glyphs into the dust. Even in leisure, the rhythm of creation continues. The village of Deir el-Medina is well organized, with its own courts and records. Disputes are handled with calm deliberation. Scribes maintain careful logs of each worker's presence, each day's progress. The community is literate, articulate, and aware of its unique place in the kingdom. They know the weight of their responsibility to create a resting place for kings that will withstand the storms of time. And yet, these artisans are also human. They celebrate births with song, mourn their dead with soft weeping, offer prayers to Hathor for health and love. They carve their own modest tombs, often just a few chambers deep, but adorned with the same loving care as the royal ones. In these, we see their humour, their hopes, their daily life preserved in paint and stone. A man offering flowers to his wife, a couple playing senet, a family sharing a meal beneath the gaze of protective gods. At night, the village grows quiet. Lamps flicker behind mud brick walls, casting golden glows onto worn pathways. Some artisans return to their own creative work, painting on limestone fragments, crafting amulets or small statues for the village shrine. Others sit with their families, watching the stars trace slow paths across the sky. Above them, the valley of the kings lies silent, the resting place of rulers carved by hands like theirs. To walk among the artisans of ancient Egypt is to witness the fusion of labor and love. They are not nameless workers lost to time, but individuals whose touch still lingers in every line of every tomb. Their legacy is not in fame, but in the stillness of painted chambers, in the sacred stories preserved against the decay of centuries. For every pharaoh who lies within the cool depths of rock, it is these men and women who shaped his passage into the afterlife. And though their own names may be carved on smaller stones, their spirit lives in every wall where beauty, devotion, and eternity converge. In the tranquil cadence of Egyptian life, marked by sunrise labor and sunset rest, there arrive days when the ordinary is transformed, when the soft rhythms of farming and craft give way to drums, dancing, and jubilant praise. These are the festival days, holy and joyous, when the people pause to honor their gods, their ancestors, and the turning of the seasons. It is during these sacred celebrations that Egypt's soul shines brightest. The dawn of a festival day begins with anticipation. The air itself feels lighter, scented with burning myrrh and petals scattered along the pathways. Families rise early, not for the toil of the fields, but to prepare for ceremony. Children wash with special care, their hair brushed and braided, their tunics clean and freshly woven. Mothers tie bright beads at their daughters' wrists, and fathers apply kohl to their eyes, not only for beauty, but for spiritual protection. In the villages, simple garlands of reeds and lilies are draped over doorways. In the cities, banners flutter from balconies, and temples are swept and polished until their stone gleams in the early light. The streets fill with the low hum of expectation, voices raised in song, feet moving in rhythm, hearts tuned to the divine. Each festival belongs to a god or a great moment in the mythic past. The festival of Opet honors the bond between Amun and the pharaoh, with processions that wind through Thebes, linking temple to temple. The Feast of Hathor celebrates love, music, and joy. The beautiful festival of the valley bridges the worlds of the living and the dead, as families cross the Nile to bring offerings to tombs, reuniting with ancestors in spirit. In one town, a priest stands atop the temple steps, raising his arms to the sky as the morning sun crests over the horizon. The crowd below falls into reverent silence. The festival has begun. The statue of the god is brought forth from the sanctuary, its form hidden beneath layers of cloth and gold, carried by a line of priests on a sacred bark. This is the moment of divine presence, when the god leaves the inner sanctum and walks among the people. Drums sound, flutes sing, and the bark sways with ceremonial steps through the streets, trailing incense and petals. Around the procession, dancers in flowing garments move in perfect harmony. Their movements are not theatrical, but spiritual, embodying the stories of creation and rebirth. Their feet stamp in rhythm with the earth, arms rising like birds, fingers tracing shapes of stars. Every gesture is a prayer in motion. Musicians follow, their instruments both simple and powerful, harps plucked in golden notes, sistrums shaken in vibrating praise, tambourines echoing like heartbeats. Song fills the air, choral hymns known since childhood, verses passed through centuries, sung in joy and reverence. The gods are not distant. In Egypt, they are near, present in every beat, every breath of the day. Food and drink flow freely. Baskets of bread and figs are shared among neighbors. Beer, sweetened with dates and thick with grain, is passed from jar to jar. For those who can afford it, roasted duck or honey cakes add delight. No one eats alone during a festival. Even the poorest are given food, for generosity is a sacred duty when the gods walk among mortals. Children run in circles, faces painted with symbols of protection and play. Old stories are acted out in the open, tales of Isis searching for Osiris, of Set's wild fury, of Horus claiming his birthright. These performances are more than entertainment. They are sacred drama, weaving memory and meaning into every gesture. At night, the city glows with flame. Lamps are lit in every home, along every temple step, across every path. The stars appear, mirrored by the flicker of earthly fire. Families sit together under the open sky, listening to tales retold, to music that swells and fades, to prayers murmured like lullabies. In the grand temples, the high priests perform the final rites. Offerings are placed before the god once more. Flowers, bread, incense, and small statues. The divine bark is returned to the sanctuary. The god, having walked among his people, now rests again in mystery. But the spirit of the festival lingers, etched into the hearts of all who danced, sang, and prayed. In the quiet that follows, a young girl leans against her grandmother, eyes heavy with sleep. She has danced for Hathor, eaten her fill of pomegranate seeds, and sung until her voice grew faint. Her grandmother hums softly, brushing her fingers through the child's hair, whispering thanks to the gods for another year, another celebration, another memory added to the chain of time. Even in death, these festivals are remembered. Tomb paintings, show processions frozen in perfect step, musicians mid-song, priests bearing sacred images. The soul, it is believed, joins in these festivals forever, singing and dancing in the field of reeds, the eternal paradise. To live through a festival. Day in ancient Egypt is to glimpse the world not as burden, but as blessing. It is to feel the divine not in thunder or flame, but in song, in laughter, in the closeness of family and the grace of the gods. It is a day when the sacred and the joyous meet, and the veil between earth and eternity is drawn back just enough for light to pass through. And when the dawn returns, quiet once more, and the garlands have wilted, and the drums are still, life resumes. Fields are ploughed, loaves are baked, scrolls are written, but something lingers, a softness, a warmth. The gods have danced with their people, and in the glow of memory, every day that follows feels a little more divine. Long before kings ruled from golden thrones and priests chanted beneath temple domes, the Nile had already carved its path through the soul of Egypt. It was here before cities, before script, before stone. To understand life in ancient Egypt, one must not begin with pharaohs or pyramids, but with the river that flows like time itself. Measured, sacred, and eternal. The Nile is more than water. It is breath. It is motion. It is mother and father, friend and judge. Without it, Egypt is only sand and silence. But with it, the land is green and generous, a ribbon of life cutting through a desert as old as the stars. Every year, with a rhythm, as steady as the heartbeat of a god, the Nile floods. This is not disaster, it is deliverance. In the season of Akhet, when the star Sirius rises in the early morning sky, the river swells with the distant rains from far-off lands. The water spills over its banks, dark and heavy with silt, submerging fields and transforming the earth into a mirror of the heavens. For weeks, the land rests beneath water. Farmers lay down their tools and turn instead to maintenance, to craft, to celebration. Children watch the fish swim through what was once a road. Elders sit on raised platforms, offering prayers to Hapi, the spirit of the flood, whose blue-skinned image decorates temple walls. Offerings of bread and water are made, at river's edge, gratitude for this yearly renewal. Then, slowly, the waters recede. The season of Pare follows, the time of emergence. The fields, now rich with nutrients, are ready. Men and women return to the land, guiding wooden ploughs behind oxen, their feet sinking into the moist soil. Seeds are scattered by hand. Barley, emmer wheat, flax, each cast a prayer, each furrow a promise. The Nile gives life not only through its floods, but through its flow. Along its banks grow reeds, used for baskets, mats, and the sacred papyrus. Boats drift with its current, bearing goods, letters, and people. Fishermen cast their nets from narrow skiffs, their silhouettes sharp against the morning mist. Water-bearers carry heavy jars balanced on shoulders, singing as they walk the worn paths from shore to home. Its cycles dictate the rhythm of the year. 3 seasons: Akhet, flooding; Pare, planting; and Shemu, harvest. Each season is 3 months, each month 3 weeks, each week 10 days. The calendar, the festivals, the planting of fields and timing of marriages, all are guided by the river's breath. In the early days of Shemu, the harvest season, the land bursts with gold. Stalks of grain are cut by hand, bound into bundles and carried on backs or in carts pulled by donkeys. Children chase one another between rows, their laughter rising with the birds. The grain is threshed and winnowed, the chaff caught by the wind, the kernels stored in great mud brick granaries to feed the village until the flood returns. The Nile is teacher and test. In years when the waters rise too high, homes are lost. In years when it comes too low, famine waits in the shadows. The people do not curse it, they understand. The river is a god, and gods are not always gentle. They must be honoured, not controlled. They must be trusted, In one small village, a father teaches his son to read the signs. They walk along the riverbank at dusk, pointing to the way the reeds bend, the way the fish rise, the patterns in the clouds above. The river speaks, the father says, but it does not use words. The boy nods, his eyes wide, listening, not with ears, but with heart. Temples line the river, their columns reflected in its waters. Priests collect samples during rituals, measuring the depth with a nilometer carved into stone. Taxes, planting, and even royal decrees depend on these. Readings. The Nile's voice is not just natural, it is political, economic, spiritual. At night, families gather by the water's edge, sitting on mats as the moon glimmers on the surface. Old songs are sung, stories retold. Some speak of the river as a serpent winding through the desert, its head in the mountains, its tail lost in the sea. Others say it is the path the gods take each night in the underworld, bringing rebirth with each dawn. The Nile is not a backdrop, it is the stage. Life happens on its banks because of its presence, in reverence of its mystery. Even in dreams, the river flows. For the dead, too, the river matters. Tombs are often placed on the west bank, where the sun sets, symbolizing the end of life and the beginning of the next. Funeral boats cross the water, carrying the body, the mourners, the offerings. Just as the living cross from field to field, so too do souls cross from life into eternity, guided by the river's memory. To survive even a single year in ancient Egypt is to live with the river's rhythms, to accept its gifts, endure its silence, and celebrate its return. It is to rise with the flood, to plant with hope, to reap with gratitude. The Nile does not shout, it does not beg for attention, but it carries all of Egypt in its gentle arms, from the smallest village to the grandest temple, from the first breath of a child to the last prayer whispered in a tomb. And as the stars bloom above the darkened waters, and the breeze stirs the reeds with a sound like soft singing, the river continues, endlessly, patiently, eternally, writing Egypt's story upon the sands of time. In a land where gods walk beside mortals and the unseen world hums just beneath the surface of the visible, healing is never simply a matter of the body. In ancient Egypt, the art of medicine is woven tightly with the power of magic, with ritual and belief, with the invisible threads that tie soul to flesh, fate to breath. To fall ill is not only to seek herbs and salves, it is to summon protection from the very fabric of the cosmos. The Egyptian word for doctor is soign-w, a title held with deep respect. These physicians are trained in temples, their knowledge passed down through scrolls and chants, their hands practiced in both gentle care and sacred rites. Many are also priests, serving in the houses of life, where medical wisdom is gathered and guarded. They treat not only villagers and laborers, but also scribes, nobles, and sometimes the pharaoh himself. In the cool shadows of a modest home, a healer prepares her tools. Small jars of honey, crushed herbs, and fragrant resins line her shelves. A bronze knife, clean and sharpened, rests beside a strip of white linen. The patient lies quietly, his legs swollen from an insect bite that has turned red and hot. She examines it without fear, murmuring softly to the goddess Sekhmet, lioness of plague and healing, fierce in wrath, tender in cure. She does not work alone. A second figure, a learned scribe, kneels beside her, reciting words from a papyrus roll. The spell is ancient, its syllables smooth as river stones. As the healer applies a poultice of fig and clay, the words are spoken not to frighten spirits away, but to invite harmony back into the body. The illness is imbalance, a disruption of Ma'at. Healing is the return to order. Egyptian medicine is remarkably advanced. Diagnoses include terms for inflammation, tumors, wounds, even depression. Fractures are splintered with reeds and bandages. Eyes are treated with powdered malachite. burns soothed with honey and resin. Childbirth, dangerous and sacred, is attended by midwives skilled in both technique and ritual. Amulets of Taweret and Bez hang in birthing rooms, their forms fierce and protective, their presence believed to ward off evil forces. In one corner of the village, a mother cradles her fevered child. She has called for the local healer, an elderly woman who arrives with quiet grace and a pouch of dried herbs. She boils water, adding thyme and fenugreek, creating a steam that rises in fragrant curls. As the child breathes deeply, the healer touches the forehead, then dips her fingers in oil and draws protective symbols upon the skin. "The fever will break," she whispers. "The gods have seen. Not all sickness is treated with potions. Some ailments are believed to be caused by spirits, by curses, by the unseen malice of those who envy or offend. For these, the treatment is magic. A spell may be written on a papyrus and burned, its ashes mixed with water and drunk. Or it may be worn in a locket, close to the heart. Names of demons are spoken and dismissed, their power broken by sacred words. Some spells are protective, woven into daily life. A charm buried at the threshold of a house, a statue blessed at a festival, a hymn sung while bathing, each a thread in the tapestry of health. Magic is not rare or strange in Egypt. It is a constant companion, a shield as familiar as a mother's voice. Even the dead receive care. In the embalming house, priests work with precision and prayer, preserving the body for eternity. Natron dries the flesh, oils anoint it, and spells are tucked between linen wrappings. Organs are placed in canopic jars, each guarded by a god with the face of an animal. The heart, seat of the soul, is often returned to the chest, for it must be weighed in the afterlife. For those who cannot afford such care, simpler rites suffice. A small figurine, a whispered spell, a meal offered in memory. Healing does not always come in the form of survival. It may come in peace, in reunion with ancestors, in safe passage through the stars. In the city, the temple clinics bustle with need. Patients wait beneath colonnades, holding jars and letters. Healers consult with scribes, referencing scrolls filled with prescriptions. For the cough, mix dates, onions, and honey. For a sore throat, gargle with beer and myrrh. These texts, copied and recopied, are more than recipes. They are living testaments of care. Medicine is not always gentle. Surgery, though rare, is performed. Toothaches may be treated with extraction or heated resin. Cautery, burning to close wounds, is known. Pain is managed with poppy extracts, with spells to dull suffering, with the comforting murmur of family beside the bed. Every act, every effort is rooted in compassion and belief. And yet, not every illness ends in healing. When the body fails, the spirit is honored. Death is not defeat. It is a crossing. The healer becomes guide. The home becomes sanctuary. Prayers are sung. Tears are shed. And the name of the departed is spoken, so that it may echo forever. To live in ancient Egypt is to live in harmony with seen and unseen, with gods and remedies, with order and mystery. Healing flows not just through the hands of the physician, but through the sacred bond between soul and world. And as the night falls and the lamps flicker beside a resting child, the healer washes her hands once more, sets aside her tools, and lifts her eyes to the stars. There, in the deep hush of the desert sky, she finds what every healer seeks, not only cure, but quiet, and the blessed return of balance. In the stillness of early morning, before the sun lifts fully above the desert horizon, a hush rests upon the courtyard of the local court. Here, beneath a low canopy that shades scribes, judges, and villagers alike, justice prepares to speak, not with sword or whip, but with the gentle, measured breath of ancient order. For in Egypt, justice is not merely law. It is ma'at, the sacred balance of truth, harmony, and fairness that sustains the world. Ma'at is more than a goddess. She is principle, presence, the invisible thread that ties all things together. Her feather, often worn by judges as a symbol, represents the weight of truth. Her name is invoked not only in courtrooms, but in rituals, oaths, even the hearts of those who seek to live rightly. Without Mat, chaos returns. With her, the world endures. The court is simple in structure, no marble columns or lofty benches. Instead, a group of respected elders and appointed officials sits on woven mats or low stools. A scribe records every word, his reed pen dancing across papyrus with calm precision. He writes not only the facts, but the echoes of voices, the shape of argument, the murmur of human need. This morning, a dispute arises between two farmers over a narrow canal. One claims his neighbor blocked the water during the planting season. The other argues the canal was his to use, as agreed the previous year. They stand side by side, weathered and proud, their feet dusty, their linen robes clean but worn. They speak respectfully, their voices steady, even in disagreement. This is not a place for shouting. It is a place for truth. The judge listens, not rushing. He asks for witnesses, examines old scrolls, listens to the flow of events as one might. Listen to a river, carefully, attentively, seeking the current beneath the surface. He is not bound by rigid codes, but by understanding of Mat. What is fair? What serves harmony? What will restore balance? When the decision is given, it is accepted. One farmer is granted use of the canal for this season, the other for the next, with a written agreement to confirm. The scribe records it, the disputants bow in thanks, and the court moves on to the next case. Justice in ancient Egypt touches every part of life. It governs theft and inheritance, marriage and debt, land and labor. But it does so gently, patiently, with an eye not for punishment, but for peace. The goal is not to win, but to mend. Marriage contracts are drawn and witnessed, their terms clear and fair. If a woman chooses to divorce, she may take her belongings, even her share of wealth if so agreed. Women may sue, own land, manage property, and defend themselves in court. They are not equal by modern standards, but they are far from powerless. Ma'at does not favor one gender, it favors right action. In larger cities, judges are trained officials, often appointed by the vizier, the pharaoh's highest administrator and the guardian of law. In smaller towns, respected elders serve this role, their wisdom grown from long life and a reputation for fairness. Scribes are present at every step, recording testimonies, rulings, and oaths sworn before the gods. Punishment, when needed, is measured. Minor offences, damaged property, unpaid debts are settled through repayment, fines, or restitution. More serious crimes, assault, theft, blasphemy, may carry harsher penalties, including corporal punishment or banishment. But even these are rare. Most people seek to avoid conflict, not from fear of reprisal, but from the deep-rooted belief that Mat must not be broken. In one case, a merchant accuses a neighbor of stealing grain. The neighbor denies it, claiming drought left him no choice. The judge listens, asks questions, seeks clarity. In the end, the thief confesses, not from fear, but from shame. He is ordered to repay twice the grain stolen and to help repair the granary wall in apology. The court adjourns not in anger, but in healing. Justice is also spiritual. At death, every soul faces the ultimate judgment in the Hall of Two Truths. There, before Osiris and 42 divine judges, the heart is weighed against the feather of Mat. If the heart is heavy with wrongdoing, it is devoured by Amit, the soul lost forever. But if it balances true, the soul passes into the eternal field of reeds, a paradise of peace. This image shapes life. Children learn early to speak, truth to share fairly, to act with honor. Elders teach through stories, of kings who ruled wisely, of peasants who stood for justice, of gods who punished cruelty and rewarded mercy. Mat is not a word. It is a way. In the cool courtyard of the court, the scribe dips his pen again. Another case, another story, another moment where balance is restored. Around him, villagers go about their day, buying goods, drawing water, harvesting crops. They do so with the quiet knowledge that they live in a land governed not by fear, but by fairness. As the sun begins to lower, casting long shadows across the earth, the judge rises. He bows toward the horizon, gives thanks to the gods, and walks home without guards or grandeur. His work is done, not because he has ruled, but because he has listened and helped the world tilt back toward harmony. To witness justice in ancient Egypt is to understand that law can be gentle, that strength can be silent, that truth, when held in steady hands, can be as enduring as the stone beneath the temples and as light as the feather that measures the soul. In the soft breath of twilight, when the sun begins its descent into the west and the golden light glides gently across the land, the thoughts of the living often turn toward the dead. In ancient Egypt, death is not an end, but a passage, a crossing from one world into another. And to guide that journey safely, the people of the Nile prepare their dead with care, reverence, and profound devotion. The journey begins not with death, but with life. From an early age, Egyptians live with the awareness of the afterlife. They see it in the stars above, in the images on tomb walls, in the stories whispered by firelight. A good life leads to a peaceful eternity. And so, as people grow, they save not only for daily needs, but for the time when they must face the final gate. When death comes, the body is not simply buried, it is transformed. The art of mummification is sacred, a careful process that preserves the body for the next world. The goal is not vanity, it is continuity. The soul, the ka, must recognize its form. The ba, the spirit that travels, must return each night to rest. The body is a home, even in death. In a quiet house near the necropolis, embalmers begin their work. The process is long, lasting 70 days. The body is washed and anointed. Organs are removed with care, each placed in its own canopic jar, stomach, intestines, lungs, liver, each guarded by a divine figure, human, jackal, baboon, falcon. The heart, often considered the seat of the soul, may be left in place or replaced with a stone scarab etched with spells of protection. The body is dried with natron, a natural salt, until all moisture is gone. Then, it is wrapped in linen, layer upon layer, each bound with amulets, prayers, and soft chants. The face may be painted, the hands placed across the chest. A final mask is placed upon the head, sometimes of gold, sometimes painted wood, its expression serene, eyes wide, as if already seeing eternity. The coffin, often shaped like a human form, is painted with scenes of gods, of offerings, of stars, and sacred texts. The name of the deceased is written clearly, for to be named is to be remembered. Some are buried in simple wooden boxes. Others rest in elaborate sarcophagi nested within one another, each layer a shield against time. On the day of burial, the family gathers in solemn procession. Priests lead the way, chanting hymns from the Book of the Dead. Women weep openly, their hair loosened, their hands raised in mourning. Offerings are carried, loaves of bread, jars of beer, pieces of linen, a favorite game board, a small statue of the deceased. These are not tokens, they are necessities, gifts for the journey ahead. A priest wearing the mask of Anubis, the jackal-headed god of embalming, performs the opening of the mouth ceremony. With a special tool, he touches the mummies, lips, eyes, and ears, symbolically restoring the senses so the dead may speak, see, hear, and eat in the afterlife. It is a moment of magic and hope, a sacred breath granted before the tomb is sealed. The tomb itself may be simple or grand. For a farmer, it may be a single chamber dug into the earth with a few painted images and a clay tablet bearing his name. For a noble, It may be a complex of rooms filled with furniture, jewelry, food, and scrolls. The walls are painted with scenes of life, hunting, feasting, music, and worship. These are not memories, but invitations to continue living in paradise, to walk through eternity surrounded by joy. In the Valley of the Kings, far from the villages and fields, great tombs spiral deep into the mountainside. Their walls are carved with celestial maps, their ceilings painted with the constellations of the night sky. Here lie pharaohs, their names preserved in gold, their spirits guided by Ra himself across the sky. But even in these tombs, the essence is the same: to prepare, to honor, to remember. The tomb is sealed, but it is not forgotten. Families return during festivals, bringing offerings and prayers. The names of the dead are spoken aloud, their deeds recalled. He was kind, someone might say. She was wise. He gave bread to the hungry. She told stories that made us laugh. Memory is a form of resurrection. In Egypt, to be remembered is to live again. In the afterlife, the soul walks through the hall of two truths, where the heart is weighed against the feather of Ma'at. If the heart is light, the soul passes on to the field of reeds, a land of peace, where rivers flow gently and crops grow without toil. There, one is reunited with loved ones, with ancestors, with the gods. But if the heart is heavy, it is devoured by Amit, the soul destroyed forever. This fate is feared not because of pain, but because it is a silence beyond silence, to be forgotten, to vanish. And so, the people of Egypt do all they can to guard against this. Names are etched in stone, stories are painted on walls, offerings are made, generation after generation. Even small tokens, Shabti dolls placed in the tomb to work in the afterlife, carry inscriptions, reminders of identity and purpose. To live in Egypt is to live with death not as an end, but as a door. The preparation is not mournful, but meaningful. It is an act of love, of belief, of trust in the continuity of the soul. As the sun sets behind the hills, casting long shadows across the necropolis, the land is still. A soft wind carries the scent of myrrh. In the silence, one can almost hear the prayers whispered through centuries, the soft footfalls of those who passed before, the laughter and tears of lives well lived. And deep beneath the earth, wrapped in linen, cradled in stone, the dead rest, not in fear, but in peace, awaiting the next morning's light, when the sun rises once more and the eternal journey continues. Beyond the rich floodplains of the Nile, where palm trees sway and water sings between furrows of grain, lies the harsh and unforgiving realm of Egypt's outer lands, the desert, the red land, the protector and the peril. It is here, at the edges of civilization, that Egypt meets the unknown. And to guard these thresholds stand the soldiers of the pharaoh, men trained in discipline, armed not only with weapons, but with loyalty and resolve. The Egyptian soldier is not a brute or raider, but a guardian. His purpose is not conquest, though wars are sometimes waged. His true duty is to maintain order, protect the kingdom's wealth, and uphold the pharaoh's divine will. His life, while steeped in dust and danger, is guided by honor and oath. Recruitment begins young. Sons of farmers, craftsmen, even scribes, may find themselves drawn to the discipline of the army. Some join by necessity, seeking food, shelter, or the promise of gold. Others are conscripted, their names chosen in village rolls. Still others volunteer, dreaming of glory or duty. Whatever the path, all enter the barracks the same, with heads shaved, linen tunics issued, and the name of the pharaoh placed upon their lips and hearts. The training is rigorous. In garrisons along the borderlands or near royal cities, the recruits wake before dawn, running barefoot across sand, lifting heavy stones, practicing archery beneath the punishing sun. They learn to march in step, to follow commands without hesitation, to sharpen blades and mend shields. Discipline is prized. A soldier must move as one part of a larger whole, an arm of the state, steady and loyal. Weapons are varied. Some wield short bronze swords, curved like a crescent moon. Others carry long spears, or simple but deadly clubs. Archers are trained from a young age, their arms wiry and strong, their eyes sharp as hawks. Most wear only light armor, leather or layered cloth, for speed and breath are often more valuable than steel in the heat of battle. And there is always the shield, large, oval, made from stretched animal hide over a wooden frame. It bears the mark of the regiment or the symbol of the pharaoh, and it becomes a soldier's second skin. Behind it, he marches, defends, and survives. Patrols are a common duty. Along the Nile's winding paths, soldiers guard trade caravans, oversee border crossings, and ensure the flow of goods and tribute. To the south lie Nubia and the great gold mines. To the east, the Red Sea ports and desert roads. Soldiers are stationed in fortresses of mud brick and stone, living in austere quarters, their days measured by the movement of the sun and the dispatches of scribes. In peacetime, the military supports civil order. They assist in canal digging, construction projects, and transportation of heavy stones for temples and tombs. They help enforce laws, protect officials, and maintain the roads that connect the farthest villages to the heart of the kingdom. Their presence is constant but not feared. The people respect them, feed them, thank them, for they know who watches while they sleep. But Egypt, though powerful, is not always at peace. Raiders from the Libyan deserts, rebellions in far southern provinces, conflicts with the Hittites or Sea Peoples, all call the army to arms. When the pharaoh commands, the soldiers march. War is not romanticized. It is seen as a grim necessity, a tool of might when diplomacy fails. The pharaoh, as commander of all, may lead in person or through trusted generals. Before battle, offerings are made to Montu, the war god, and to Horus, the sky protector. Standards are raised, each unit following its banner, whether shaped, like a falcon, a jackal, or a cobra. In one campaign, a scribe records the actions of a single unit. The sun beats down, dust rises like smoke, arrows darken the sky. And yet the line holds, shields braced, spears thrust in unison. When the enemy breaks, the soldiers do not cheer. They gather the wounded, count the dead, bury the fallen. Then they return to camp, offering prayers and pouring water onto the sand for those who will not march again. Heroes are remembered. Names are carved into stelae, recited in temple hymns, passed down by family. Yet most soldiers remain unnamed, even in the records. They serve not for fame, but for duty. Many retire to quiet lives, granted land as reward, raising families who grow up with stories of distant campaigns and nights spent beneath the stars. Women too may play roles in the army as camp supporters, nurses, water carriers. Some queens and noblewomen have even led armies or influenced military policy. Their strength a testament to Egypt's complexity. But for the average soldier, the life is simple: obedience, survival, service. In the barracks after dusk, the soldiers rest. Some play board games like Senet or Hounds and Jackals. Others mend gear, write letters, or gaze across the desert horizon, dreaming of green fields and quiet songs. A few whisper prayers to their household gods, whose small statues sit beside rolled mats. And as the night cools, stars blanket the sky in silence. The desert sleeps, but the soldier remains vigilant. His eyes watch the road. His ears catch the cry of distant wind. He knows that Mart must be protected, not just with scroll and prayer, but with shield and sword, with presence and purpose. To stand as a soldier in ancient Egypt is to live with the weight of the kingdom upon one's shoulders. It is to serve, not a man, but a divine ideal. And though his name may fade with time, his steps echo still in the sand, steady as the beat of a drum, enduring as the sun that rises again and again over the land he swore to defend. As the morning sun slips above the horizon and gilds the rooftops with golden light, the markets of ancient Egypt stir to life. In towns both great and small, from the edge of Memphis to the heart of Thebes, narrow streets fill with the sound of traders calling, donkeys braying, and baskets rustling. The scent of fresh bread and crushed herbs mingles with the dry sweetness of woven flax. It is a day of commerce, and the market is the lifeblood of connection. Trade in Egypt is as old as the Nile itself. From the riverbanks to the deserts, from the delta to Nubia, goods move with quiet determination, passing through countless hands before reaching the table or altar. Unlike the temples or palaces, which speak of divine power and eternity, the market is human, vibrant, noisy, and alive with the language of trade. Vendors arrive early, unpacking goods under the shade of cloth awnings or wooden stalls. A potter displays rows of clay jars, each smoothed and sun-baked, painted with red ochre bands. Beside him, a woman arranges bundles of onions, garlic, and leeks on woven mats. Fishers offer baskets of tilapia still damp from the Nile, while shepherds show off goats with proud grins and firm hands. Bartering is the standard. Few use coined money in this period. Instead, value is determined by exchange. A jar of beer for a measure of grain, a pair of sandals for a new comb, a bracelet of faience for a cup of honeyed wine. Prices vary by region, by season, by luck and need. The art of negotiation is honed early, and children watch wide-eyed as their parents haggle in voices that rise and fall like the river's tide. At the center of the market, scribes sit with reed pens and tablets, recording contracts and receipts. A merchant selling dyed linen negotiates with a trader from across the Red Sea. They speak through gestures, bits of shared language, and the guidance of a young interpreter who scribes their agreement. 3 bolts of dyed cloth for 5 jars of frankincense to be delivered in the next flood season. Trade routes extend far beyond Egypt's borders. To the south, caravans bring gold, ivory, and incense from Nubia and Punt. To the east, lapis lazuli and timber flow in from Canaan and Syria. Along the Mediterranean coast, ships arrive with olive oil, wine, and copper. In return, Egypt offers grain, papyrus, glass, and perfumes, precious gifts from the fertile earth and the hands of skilled workers. In a nearby stall, a jeweler threads beads of turquoise and carnelian into necklaces that glint like drops of dawn. His tools are simple: a bone awl, a polishing stone, a wooden tray, but his skill is evident. A noblewoman approaches, examining the pieces with practiced fingers. She selects one shaped like the eye of Horus, a symbol of healing and protection. No words are spoken. The exchange is quiet and mutual. Children weave between stalls, clutching small coins or bits of food, peering at toys carved from wood or clay. A young boy watches a puppet show performed on a crate, the figures dancing to the beat of a tambourine. Laughter erupts, momentarily drowning out the deeper hum of commerce. These moments are small, but remembered. In the market, life breathes in its full complexity. Not all trade is face-to-face. In the workshops behind the market stalls, laborers and artisans prepare goods for temple offerings, royal stores, or long-distance shipment. Papyrus scrolls are rolled with care, sealed in jars for scribes in far cities. Oils are filtered and poured into alabaster bottles. Linen is folded, stamped with marks of origin, and wrapped in palm leaf bundles. Temples, too, are powerful centers of commerce. Their estates own fields, cattle, granaries, and workshops. Priests oversee the storage and distribution of wealth given in offerings or collected through taxes. A single temple may employ hundreds, from bakers and brewers to weavers and stonemasons. Trade and devotion are intertwined. Each offering placed at the feet of a god has passed through human hands first. At midday, the market slows. The sun is high, and the air thick with heat and scent. Traders retreat to shaded corners, sharing bread and beer, speaking softly of home, of floods and harvests, of distant cousins and near bargains. Deals are reviewed, accounts settled. A scribe counts the number of fish sold, marking them on a small scroll with quick strokes. A weaver takes inventory of his dyed fabrics, sighing at the loss of two to a careless splash of beer. By afternoon, trade resumes, this time more relaxed. Musicians appear with flutes and drums, adding rhythm to the market's pulse. Dancers spin in flowing linen, their bare feet kicking up dust that glows in the angled light. Children join in, their clapping keeping time. Even the merchants smile, handing out dried dates to the performers as tokens of thanks. As the sun sets, the market begins to fold. Goods are packed away, leftover food shared with the hungry or saved for tomorrow. Traders count their earnings, by touch and memory, placing tokens into leather purses or clay jars. The scent of spices lingers in the air, mingled with laughter and the fading heat of the day. In the distance, boats loaded with goods begin their journey north or south along the Nile, sails catching the soft evening breeze. The river, always patient, carries the treasures of Egypt to new places, to new hands. And in the wake of trade, stories travel too, of clever deals, of distant wonders, of friendship found over a basket of figs. To walk through the market of ancient Egypt is to feel the pulse of its people, not the high voice of kings, but the steady, grounding hum of exchange, of labor, of mutual need and trust. It is here, among the jars and spices, the voices and hands, that Egypt's wealth is not only counted, but shared. In the soft shadow of dusk, as the last warmth of the sun lingers on mud-brick walls and the river hushes into stillness, another kind of life awakens in ancient Egypt. A life of sound, of feeling, of art crafted not with tools or ink, but with voice, with strings, and with the tremble of the human heart. For while Egypt is known for its stone and script, it also sings. Music is not rare or reserved for festivals alone. It is a thread that weaves through every moment of Egyptian life, echoing in birth and death, in prayer and play, in labor and rest. Even the smallest village knows its melodies, and every household owns an instrument of some kind. In this land, music is a language of joy and longing, celebration and memory. In a courtyard warmed by oil lamps, a woman plays the harp. Her fingers, calloused yet delicate, glide across its strings, drawing out tones as ancient as the Nile. Around her sit her family. Children drowsy from the day, a grandmother spinning thread, a father carving wood. The music is soft, low, and steady. It speaks not in words, but in rhythm, the kind that settles in the bones. The harp is one of Egypt's most beloved instruments. It comes in many forms, small and light for home or temple, tall and ornate for royal courts. Its frame is shaped from sycamore or acacia wood, its strings wound tight from plant fiber or animal sinew. Each note is tuned by ear, and every melody learned by heart. There is no written music, only memory, passed from hand to hand like a treasured gift. Beside the harp, a girl taps gently on a drum. Her rhythm is simple but sure. The beat supports the song, grounds it, gives it movement. Other instruments join, a flute made from reed, a lyre strung with gut, a rattle of clay and stone. Together, they create something greater than themselves, an offering to the moment, to one another, to the gods who listen from afar. Music accompanies every stage of life. At birth, lullabies soothe the newborn, sung in voices soft and steady, filled with wishes and love. During work, songs keep pace with the swing of tools and the press of stone. In worship, chants rise from temple walls, carried by priests to the ears of gods, their tones meant to purify and praise. Even in mourning there is music, not of despair, but of farewell. Flutes cry like wind through reeds, harps play slow and low. Wailing women sing laments, names repeated like mantras, memories layered in every verse. These songs remind the living that grief is not weakness but remembrance. Poetry too is never far. It is sung, spoken and etched into stone, Lovers exchange verses carved onto small pieces of pottery, slipped quietly into hands or tucked into doorways. My heart is in your hands, one poem begins, like a bird without wings when you are gone. The words are simple, but their truth cuts deep. In schools, children learn not only how to write, but how to recite. Lines of praise for the pharaoh, hymns to the gods, tales of great deeds told with rhythm and grace. The best poems are remembered for generations, spoken around fires or woven into songs. Some survive in tombs, inscribed so the soul may find comfort in the afterlife. In the palace courts, trained musicians perform for nobles and guests. They wear flowing linen, their hair braided with gold thread, their movements graceful. Their music is refined, their lyrics complex, often praising beauty, virtue, or divine favor. But even here, in the luxury of fine halls, the same emotions stir, the same longing, the same joy. Music is also a tool of healing. In temples dedicated to Hathor, goddess of joy and music, priests and priestesses use sound to ease pain and lift spirits. They believe music aligns the soul with Maat, restores balance to the troubled heart. A melody can be a balm, a rhythm, a medicine. Even silence carefully placed holds power. One old tale speaks of a time when Ra, the sun god, grew weary and angry with the world. Hathor, to soothe him, danced and played her sistrum, a sacred rattle, and sang songs so sweet that even his wrath melted into laughter. The sun rose again, not from command, but from comfort. The world was saved not by might, but by music. At the edge of a quiet village, a boy sits alone near the water, a simple flute pressed to his lips. He plays not for an audience, but for himself, for the stars above, for the river that never sleeps, for the longing he cannot name. The notes rise, float, and fade. He closes his eyes. For a moment, he is no longer a farmer's son, no longer a boy. He is part of something larger, timeless, vast, and free. As night deepens and the moon climbs high, the music of Egypt lingers. It hides in the rustle of reeds, in the hush of palms, in the heartbeat of those who listen. It is not always heard, but it is always there, waiting, whispering, welcoming. To live in ancient Egypt is to live with music at your side. It comforts the child, guides the worker, honors the god, and holds the hand of the dying. It is memory without words, joy without reason, a song that never ends. In the sacred stillness of the palace, where incense floats like mist and golden pillars reflect the morning sun, the regalia of Egypt rests upon a polished wooden stand. It gleams silently, crowns, staffs, necklaces, and ceremonial garments, objects of divine craftsmanship and immense meaning. For in ancient Egypt, power is not declared with loud words, but expressed through symbols, carefully shaped and layered with centuries of belief. Each piece of royal adornment speaks. It speaks to the gods, to the people, to history itself. These are not mere ornaments. They are living emblems of authority, legitimacy, and eternal order. When a pharaoh dons his regalia, he is not simply dressing, he is transforming, stepping into the role of divine intermediary, cloaked in the image of eternity. Foremost among these symbols is the crown. In truth, there is not one crown, but many, each with its own meaning, each worn at different times to reflect the nature of rule. The white crown of Upper Egypt, tall and conical, is a sign of sovereignty over the southern lands. The red crown of Lower Egypt, flat with a coiled extension, marks dominion over the delta. When joined, they form the double crown, the Shent, a union of the two lands, a sign that the pharaoh rules over all. To wear this is not just to hold authority, it is to embody unity. The two crowns are rarely combined in nature, yet always in art, reminding the viewer that peace and balance are maintained through the harmony of opposites. In the pharaoh's hand is often found the crook and flail, ancient emblems of kingship. The crook, shaped like a shepherd's staff, symbolizes guidance and care. The flail, once used in threshing grain, becomes a symbol of provision and discipline. Together, they express the two sides of leadership: nurture and command. The pharaoh holds them crossed upon his chest in life and in death, a gesture that speaks of guardianship, of bearing the burden of the realm. These objects are not wielded, but carried, signs not of violence, but of sacred duty. Around the neck, the broad collar gleams with inlays of turquoise, lapis lazuli, and carnelian. Its design is more than beauty. Each stone is chosen for meaning: blue for protection, red for strength, green for rebirth. The collar circles the neck and shoulders like a shield of light, protecting the king and marking him as chosen. Sometimes, the pharaoh wears the Neem's headdress, a striped cloth that frames the face and flows over the shoulders. It is iconic, its patterns echoing the folds of the heavens. At its brow sits the uraeus, the rearing cobra, ready to strike. This serpent is Wadjet, protector of kingship, whose gaze turns enemies to ash. In some depictions, she is joined by a vulture, Nekbet, guardian of Upper Egypt. Together they form a crown of watchfulness and fierce love. Not far from the regalia lies another item of deep significance: the scepter. There are many types. The was scepter, tall and forked at the base, topped with an animal head, represents dominion and control over chaos. The Sekhem scepter, short and solid, signifies power and strength. These are not tools, but anchors, weights, that ground the pharaoh's authority in cosmic law. In religious ceremonies, high priests also carry symbols, smaller versions, appropriate to their roles. A priest of Anubis may wear a jackal mask and hold a flail. A priestess of Hathor may wear a headdress shaped like cow's horns cradling the sun disk. These vestments connect them to their deities, making their words and actions more than human. Common people, too, wear symbols, though simpler. A farmer might tie a blue bead around his child's neck to invoke protection from the gods. A mother may braid an amulet into her hair shaped like an ankh, the symbol of life. A young girl wears a scarab of glazed faience, believing it will bring her luck and help her name be remembered in the afterlife. Every item of regalia, great or small, is part of a sacred language. To understand it is to read the story of power, not as domination, but as responsibility. When a king appears in full regalia at a festival, his image glows not with wealth, but with meaning. He is not simply a man. He is the horizon where heaven touches earth. Even in tombs, the regalia remains. In death, the pharaoh is buried with his symbols, each placed with care. His mask, golden and serene, bears the Neem's headdress, the uraeus coiled in readiness. His body holds the crook and flail. Around him lie scepters, collars, crowns, each waiting to serve him in the field of reeds. These are not relics. They are tools for eternity. The dead king will need to rule again, to greet gods, to defend Mart. His regalia ensures he will be recognized, remembered, and revered. To walk among the symbols of ancient Egypt is to walk through a gallery of silence that speaks. Each shape, each stone, each fold of cloth tells of duty, of continuity, of the sacred trust placed in one who wears them. And as the temple bells ring softly in the distance, and the torches flicker against stone walls, the regalia waits, not for display, but for purpose. For in Egypt, true power is not shouted, it is worn with grace, and its voice is heard even when no words are spoken. In the soft glow of morning, as the Nile glitters beneath the waking sky, and the sounds of animals and farmers rise gently with the mist, children laugh in the dusty courtyards of Egypt. Their voices, bright and musical, flutter like birds between the mud-brick walls. While their elders labor in fields or temples, the children of ancient Egypt learn to live, to play, to grow. Their world is smaller, yes, but no less rich, no less sacred. Childhood in Egypt is brief yet cherished. Most boys and girls are expected to take on small responsibilities early, fetching water, tending animals, learning crafts. But in those golden years before full adulthood, they live close to joy, guided by family, by the land, and by the rhythms of life that wrap gently around their days. A young boy wakes before the sun, rubbing sleep from his eyes. His hair is mostly shaved, save for a long side lock that marks his youth. He washes in a clay basin with cool river water, then eats bread and a few figs beside his sister. She's already giggling, whispering about the game they'll play once. Chores are done. The day begins with laughter. Education comes in many forms. For the children of farmers and workers, it begins at home. They learn by doing. How to knead dough, how to steer oxen, how to weave reeds into mats. Fathers teach sons to plant and harvest. Mothers teach daughters to cook, sew, and tend to younger siblings. Knowledge is passed gently, not through long lectures, but through rhythm and repetition. For those of higher status, scribes, priests, merchants, formal education awaits. Boys attend school, often attached to temples or government offices. There they learn to read and write, to measure, and memorize, to chant the sacred texts and calculate taxes. The days are long, the work demanding. Teachers are strict, armed with sticks and scrolls. But for those who persevere, the reward is great. A life free from manual labor, a place close to power and permanence. Writing is at the heart of it all. Children learn first by copying signs onto shards of broken pottery. Hieroglyphs are complicated. Every line, every angle must be perfect. Some practice with determination, others sneak glances out the window, dreaming of the river. Yet every scribe once sat cross-legged like this, struggling with the curl of a symbol, the spacing of a name. Girls, though rarely trained as scribes, still receive wisdom. Within the home, they are taught medicine, prayer, music, and household. Management, some become priestesses, midwives, or businesswomen. Their learning is quieter, but no less vital. In Egypt, women may own land, inherit property, and represent themselves in court. A mother's guidance carries weight, but life is not all duty. Children play with abandon. Their games are simple but joyful, chasing one another through alleys, tossing carved sticks, racing boats made from reeds across irrigation channels. Some play senet, an ancient board game of chance and fate, its checkered grid echoing the great journey through the afterlife. Others toss knucklebones, swing balls of cloth, or wrestle in the dust. Toys are lovingly made, dolls carved from wood or shaped from linen scraps, animals sculpted from clay, spinning tops of palm. A boy crafts a miniature chariot from reeds and watches it roll with pride. A girl wraps her doll in cloth, whispering lullabies learned from her mother. These small acts of imagination are as sacred as any temple ritual. Children also participate in festivals. They march in processions, sing in choirs, wear garlands of lotus and ribbons. Their laughter lifts the spirits of elders, their presence a blessing from the gods. In temples, small statues depict youthful deities. Horus as a child, sitting on his mother's lap, thumb to his mouth. Youth is divine, a bridge between earth and sky. Illness is a shadow that hovers. Childhood diseases, injuries, or poor harvests take lives young. Parents guard their children with charms, amulets of Bes or Taware, spells inscribed on walls, prayers whispered into their sleeping ears. A mother tucks a scarab beneath her son's bedding. A father draws the eye of Horus at the doorway. Protection is everywhere, stitched into daily life. Yet despite these dangers, Egyptian children grow with resilience. They learn not just how to survive, but how to live with reverence. They see death and know it as part of the cycle. They see birth and feel its miracle. They grow with the Nile's pulse in their veins, the stars of Nut above them, the promise of life everlasting written into their very names. As they grow older, they begin to take on more. A boy may work in the fields alongside his father, hands blistered but proud. A girl may manage the home while her mother is away, watching younger siblings, preparing meals. Their steps grow steadier, their voices deeper. But somewhere, tucked, inside, the child still lingers, the one who chased boats, who sang beneath the sycamore, who believed the stars could hear. In time, they will marry, have children of their own, teach the games and lessons they once received. And so the cycle turns again, like the river, like the seasons, like the stars. To see childhood in ancient Egypt is to glimpse the heart of its people. Not in monuments or laws, but in the way a father lifts his child to see the flood, or a mother braids her daughter's hair beneath the watching sky. It is in the laughter that echoes through dusty lanes, in the footprints left near the river, in the memory of joy. And as night falls and the world grows still, the children of Egypt sleep beneath the same sky as their ancestors, their dreams, soft with the music of crickets, the hush of water, and the warmth of a world that, for a time, is kind. In the hush of the morning, before the day fully stirs, the temple stands as it has stood for centuries, silent, solemn, bathed in the honeyed glow of the rising sun. Its walls, towering and precise, cast long shadows over the sand. Birds perch among the carved lotus capitals, and wind whispers softly between columns. In ancient Egypt, the temple is not merely a building, it is a being, a vessel, a breath of the divine rendered in stone. Temples are built not for comfort, but for permanence. They are the homes of gods, constructed to last for eternity, and every block placed within their walls is set with prayer. The process of building a temple is itself sacred. It begins with ceremony, with alignment to the stars, with offerings and rituals performed beneath open sky before the first foundation is laid. The workers come not just with tools, but with faith. Stonecutters chisel limestone and sandstone, their arms rhythmic, their faces focused. Architects, trained in sacred geometry, plan the temple to mirror creation itself. Entrances aligned to solstices, chambers reflecting the cosmos. Laborers haul blocks across desert roads on sleds greased with water, singing to keep the pace, sweat mingling with devotion. At the heart of every temple is the sanctuary, a dark, hidden chamber where the statue of the god resides. This room is not meant for public eyes. It is entered only by the high priests and, on rare occasions, the pharaoh. Here, the air is heavy with incense. Offerings are laid in silence. The god does not speak with words, but his presence is felt in every breath of stillness. The architecture leads you inward, through pylons and courtyards, past open halls of carved columns, into smaller, quieter spaces. Each level is a descent into sanctity, from the bright world of the living to the hushed realm of the divine. Walls are covered in reliefs, kings offering to gods, gods bestowing power upon kings, sacred boats, hymns and stars. Columns rise like forests, shaped as papyrus bundles or lotus blooms, their capitals flowering beneath the stone sky. Light filters through slits high in the walls, illuminating the dust as it dances. The scent of frankincense lingers on the air, mixed with old stone, old prayers, old hopes. The outer walls tell stories, not just of gods, but of history. Battles are carved into their surface. The pharaoh smiting enemies, riding in chariots, standing victorious beneath protective deities. These images are not braggarts' tales. They are public memory, carved so time may not forget. Within the temple, daily rituals take place unseen. Priests wash, dress, and feed the statue of the god as though it lives. They sing hymns, recite sacred texts, burn incense, and place fresh flowers and bread. These acts are not symbolic, they are essential. The gods depend on these attentions just as people depend on the Nile. Festivals transform the temples into places of vibrant life. The statue is brought forth, hidden within a bark, carried on the shoulders of priests as the people gather in song. The processions wind through the city, connecting temple to river, sky to earth, God to worshipper. In these moments, the temple breathes with the people, joining stone and soul. Even in silence, the temple speaks. A single hieroglyph may contain worlds. A carved falcon above a doorway guards more than stone. It holds prayers from generations, etched by hands now dust, seen by eyes now stars. The architecture is a book written not in ink, but in light and shadow, in curve and corner. Temples also serve as centers of learning. Within their walls, priests study astronomy, medicine, music, and mathematics. The House of Life, attached to many temples, is a place of scrolls and scribes, of memory and research. Knowledge is not kept for power, but preserved as part of ma'at, the sacred balance. To know is to serve truth. Many temples take lifetimes to complete. A pharaoh may begin construction, but his grandson finishes it. Yet all serve the same purpose: to anchor the divine in the world, to remind all who pass through their gates that there is more to life than hunger and harvest, that beneath the dust lies the sacred. When a temple falls out of use, it is never truly empty. The people may no longer gather, the statues may be broken, but the stone remembers. The wind through the hypostyle hall still carries the echo of chants. The sun still climbs the same path along its walls. Time may pass, but the temple endures. To walk through one is to step into another rhythm, to hear the heartbeat of an ancient world. One does not hurry. One listens. Even in quiet, the temple speaks. And so, beneath the stars that have not changed since the first stone was placed, and amid the carvings that once caught the gaze of kings and gods alike, the temple waits. It waits not for worship, but for wonder. Not for sacrifice, but for reverence. It stands as the breath of time itself, measured, eternal, and sacred. As darkness settles across the land, and the stars begin to shimmer in the velvet sky, the people of ancient Egypt lift their eyes upward. The heavens are not merely decoration. They are a map, a clock, a mirror of divine will. To understand the sky is to understand the will of the gods, the rhythm of the earth, and the order of the cosmos. In Egypt, the stars do not merely shine, they speak. Astronomy is not a distant science practiced in lofty towers. It is lived, daily, nightly, season by season. Farmers plant and harvest by the stars. Priests schedule rituals according to celestial alignments. The pharaoh himself watches the heavens, believing they reflect his own reign and destiny. The stars above are not cold or indifferent. They are wise, ancient, and alive. The most sacred star is Sopdet, known today as Sirius. Her rising in the eastern sky just before dawn signals the coming flood, the rebirth of the Nile, and the renewal of all life. Her reappearance is cause for celebration. Temples align with her light. Calendars begin with her rising. She is not just a star, she is the goddess, the herald of time. The Egyptians divide the year into 3 seasons, each tied to the movement of the Nile. Akhet, the season of flooding; Pere, the season of emergence; and Shemu, the season of harvest. Each season holds 4 months, and each month holds 3 weeks of 10 days. This calendar, built from the stars, is both practical and poetic. It carries the rhythm of life in numbers and night skies. Atop temple roofs and high platforms, priests known as Watchers of the Night observe the heavens. They track the motion of planets, the phases of the moon, the wanderings of constellations. Their records are meticulous, carved into stone or inked onto papyrus. They understand that Ra sails across the sky by day and travels through the underworld by night, and they mirror his journey in the stars. The deacons, 36 groups of stars, rise one after another throughout the night, marking hours and guiding timekeeping. Each deacon appears for 10 days, offering a celestial rhythm to earthly life. Temples are built to align with these stars, so that on special days, light pours through sacred doorways at the perfect angle, touching the altar or the feet of a god statue. It is not magic. It is knowledge shaped into reverence. Zodiacs, though more developed later, have early roots here. The stars are read for omens, for guidance. A birth under a certain sign may indicate favor or talent. The pharaoh's coronation may be chosen for its alignment with a specific constellation. The sky is a scroll, and the priests know how to read it. In one quiet home, a father teaches his son to recognize the constellations. "That is Sa," he says, pointing upward, the forerunner of Orion, the celestial hunter. Beside him is Sopdet, and further still, the river of the Milky Way, called the Winding Waterway. "They guide us," he whispers, "as they guided the first king, as they will guide you." The pyramids themselves are aligned with precision, their corners facing cardinal directions, their shafts pointing towards significant stars. These were not accidents. They reflect a world-view in which heaven and earth are bound together, where the pharaoh ascends to the stars upon death, joining the imperishable ones to watch over his people for all eternity. Eclipses are met with awe. Comets are seen as messages. The moon, waxing and waning, governs tides and moods, cycles and fertility. Even the sun's journey from east to west and its return each morning is a tale of struggle and triumph. Ra's eternal battle against chaos, renewed with every dawn. Children grow up hearing these stories. They do not fear the dark. They see it as the time of Osiris, of dreams and messages, of quiet watching. And when they lie beside their parents under the stars, they know that the sky is not empty, but full of gods, of guardians, of ancestors, shining down in silence. In the House of Life, scholars combine astronomy with healing, matching celestial patterns to illnesses, believing that stars affect the balance of humors, the strength of spirits. Remedies are given not only based on symptoms, but on time. When the moon is high, when a certain star rises, when the sky tilts just so. The sky governs everything, from when to build, when to sow, when to begin a war or crown a king. It is not superstition, it is order, it is Ma'at written in light. Even the dead are buried beneath the guidance of stars. Tombs are decorated with celestial maps. The ceilings of burial chambers are painted deep blue and studded with golden stars. The soul, freed from its earthly shell, follows these maps toward the field of reeds, toward eternal peace, guided by light that never dies. To live in ancient Egypt is to live with eyes turned both downward, to the earth, and upward, to the stars. It is to know that the rhythm of the world is written not only in harvest and flood, but in fireflies of light 1,000 lifetimes away. The stars whisper stories, mark beginnings, honor endings. They are the ink of the gods across the scroll of night. And so, as the wind cools and the jackals begin to cry in the distance, a family steps outside their home. They sit together beneath the canopy of sky, their breath quiet, their thoughts wide. They do not speak. They simply look. And the heavens, patient and eternal, look back. The wind moves gently across the sands, brushing over ruins, over stones worn by time and touch, over the shattered remnants of a once vivid world. The temples now crumble, the tombs lie buried, and the Nile runs its patient course beside fields that have changed little in millennia. But listen closely, and you may still hear it, the quiet heartbeat of ancient Egypt. The civilization may be gone, but its spirit lingers in the carvings that remain, in the hymns preserved on fragile papyrus, in the gaze of statues that have watched the stars for thousands of years. Egypt does not speak in shouts, but in echoes, soft, powerful, and enduring. Its story is not merely history, it is memory. Legacy in Egypt is not measured by conquest, but by continuity. A farmer's name etched into a tomb wall, a scribe's, handwriting preserved in ink, a pot left behind by a child. All these are as meaningful as a king's obelisk. The people of Egypt lived with a keen awareness of impermanence, and so they built with care, wrote with devotion, prayed with clarity. They believed that to be forgotten was the final death, and so they named their children after gods, carved their lineage into stone, and told stories that could pass from generation to generation. They planted trees, not just for shade, but for remembrance. They lit lamps for ancestors, spoke their names at festivals, and placed offerings beside simple graves. And it worked. Thousands of years later, we know their stories. We walk where they walked. We read their words. We marvel at their monuments. They succeeded in what all people hope for: to matter, to endure, to be known. Archaeologists unearth pieces of this great past: amulets, combs, coins, bits of linen, scraps of pottery, and each object holds a whisper: a mother's careful stitch, a worker's thumbprint in clay, a child's careless scratch in plaster. These fragments, humble and human, tell the true story of Egypt, not just of gods and pharaohs, but of people, living lives of purpose, of patience, of grace. In modern cities, museum halls recreate Egypt's grandeur. Sarcophagi rest behind glass. Jewelry glimmers under spotlights. Walls bear scenes of daily life, of harvest and worship, of marriage and mourning. Visitors stand in awe, silent before these relics of a world so distant yet so close. For though the symbols are strange, the emotions are familiar. Love, loss, hope, pride. Egypt's influence ripples through time. Its science seeded astronomy. Its writing inspired alphabets. Its architecture shaped temples and tombs across continents. Its myths echo in the stories of other lands. Even today, the Eye of Horus guards necklaces and doorways. And the Ankh, symbol of life, is worn as a sign of faith, of mystery, of strength. Yet Egypt's greatest gift may be its perspective. A worldview that sees life as a cycle, not a race, that honors silence as much as sound, that finds sacredness not in domination, but in balance. Maat is not a lost concept. It lives on in every act of justice, in every effort to restore harmony, in every whisper of care for those who came before. 2. Remember Egypt is to remember the value of slow labor, of shared stories, of living in tune with land and sky. It is to admire a culture that did not hurry to conquer the world, but instead built steadily, faithfully, on the banks of a single river, letting it guide their days and dreams. And still, the Nile flows. It flows past cities modern and ancient, past fishermen whose nets resemble those used 4,000 years ago, past temples half sunk in sand, past children whose laughter mirrors the joy of generations long gone. The river does not boast, but it remembers. It carries echoes. At sunset, a traveler walks along its edge, alone but not lonely. In the distance, a falcon soars, the symbol of Horus, still riding the skies. The traveler pauses, picks up a worn, stone carved long ago, and holds it to the light. It is nothing, and it is everything. A piece of someone's world, a voice from the past. The temples may fall, the paint may fade, the names may blur, but Egypt remains, not as it was, but as it is within us. In the way we build, in the way we dream, in the way we remember. To walk the sands of ancient Egypt, even in the mind, is to slow one's step, to hush one's voice, to breathe in reverence. It is to stand among those who knew life not as a fleeting spark, but as part of a great, slow-burning flame, tended, guarded, passed on. And when we close the scroll of this journey, when we let the dust settle and the stars return, we do not say goodbye. We simply listen, one more time, for the whisper in the stone, the echo of a voice long stilled, the memory of a world that, even now, refuses to be forgotten. This is Egypt, not buried, not vanished, but quietly eternal.